The 8th house is 1/3 of the water-ruled houses in astrology. The 4th house is ruled by Cancer, the 8th house is ruled by Scorpio, and the 12th house is ruled by Pisces. All water houses represent the psychological effects of our environment and interactions within that environment. Conditioning, influence, and patterns are some of the circumstances that can be discovered in houses 4, 8, and 12. The 8th house is about accepting not only the good, but the not so good of the other person. It also reveals what we are willing to offer and not willing to share. The 8th house is considered a fixed house, so resistance to change, obstinance, and habits will be apparent. All right, let's kick this presentation off with the sign of Scorpio. So I have a light side and a dark side. The light side is the positive attributes of Scorpio, good things that are very noticeable in this sign. Dark side is not bad traits that are in the sign of Scorpio. I just simply say dark for the sake of traits or attributes about Scorpio that need better awareness or could be improved on. So starting off on the light side, loyalty. Scorpios are well known for being extremely loyal to family, friends. They're loyal when it comes to their word, their responsibilities. Whatever they say that they're going to do, they do. They could be loyal to their job, loyal to making money, loyal to their beliefs. They are also extremely intense. I think everyone, when they think of a Scorpio, think of the word intense. I mean, that's something that is totally, you're not able to ignore that when it comes to a Scorpio. They want intense relationships. When you think of intense, think Romeo and Juliet, think Bonnie and Clyde. And that's forms of expression, glaring into each other's eyes, tight hugs, really intense lovemaking, very all or nothing. I give this a safety cone because this can borderline on being a bit destructive. Unfortunately, because of the amount of intensity Scorpios are known to look for in relationships, they can destroy good things in their life due to continuously needing to feel stimulated because they may have a lack of validation. And that comes down to the origin of the Scorpio itself. This invertebrate is filled with toxins, so looking for things to inject with toxins is not just also for their consumption too as well. In a esoteric representation, they can infect another person. Self-reliant. Scorpios are known to be extremely independent because they have this survival state that they carry with them. They can withstand the harshest circumstances. They rarely ever complain about what's going on in their life, if they even share what's going on with them. No one ever knows really the amount of sadness or anger or turmoil that's actually going on with a Scorpio. They're just a certain kind of private person where they just believe that it's their own battles to fight. Intuition. Scorpio is known, if not probably the most known of all signs, to be the most intuitive. They can notice or pick up on the unspoken emotions of others. They just have a feel. They just have an instinct, an inclination when they know something is off. Something isn't right. This can manifest into intuitively knowing about a bad business deal. They can be excellent negotiators, lawyers, great analysts, literally walking human lie detectors. And coming over to the dark side now, selfishness is something that can be noticeable in a Scorpio. They can be selfish with sharing parts of their life. We're not just talking from a tangible aspect. They can be selfish in sharing, being emotionally expressive to another person. They can also expect you to read their mind. They can be selfish in wanting to introduce you to their side of the family. Deception. Scorpios are notoriously known for being secretive. They can also leave major parts out of a story, not for just the simple fact of them lying. It can primarily be because they are exposing a vulnerable part of themselves that they're not ready to, or they just don't want to at all. They can be excellent at deflection. They also can intentionally be misleading to investigate. I actually have known quite a bit of Scorpios that sometimes let out a secret that has no significance to them anymore, just to see how you're going to react to it. And I guess based on your reaction, they come to a conclusion whether you can be trusted or not. Transformation. Constantly purging their environment, people, situations. Scorpios are constantly learning a lesson, whether you're aware of it or not. They also can force transformations before it's needed. So unfortunately, they can destroy something that's really good in their life in exchange for something that's not so good. And this is something that they have to be careful of, not wanting to control the flow of how things are happening in their life. I did give this a safety cone because one of the good things about their transformations, although it can be painful, they gain higher awareness, and they also can seemingly change for others or their environment. They are beginning to detoxify, or understanding that who they align with or where they are is not for their benefit. And last on this list, I have control. Scorpios can be envious of others encroaching on their territory. They can try to control outcomes. They can try to control their environment, property, things. They can have a very what's mine is mine kind of attitude, and it could even manifest to actually wanting to control other people. What I have listed here is how demonstrations of love, anger, happiness, sadness, and many other forms of expression or aggression will be executed in the 8th house, or this is what you can expect. There is some level of transformation from either or both parties, some level of control or devotion from either or both parties, some level of secrecy or stubbornness from either or both parties, where change, compromise, and even suffering will surface, and it will have to be addressed. The sign of Aries and Scorpio is ruled by Mars. Modern astrology assigns Pluto as the ruler of Scorpio. I personally study and find logical reasoning with origins first as to why I will be referencing Mars as a base energy that fuels Scorpio. Discussions of Pluto will be further along on this channel. Continuing on, Mars is the natural atmosphere of the 8th house. This simply means that this house will involve and heavily influence emotions, disputes, relationships, parental pain, and our shadow side. So here I have a simple description of Mars. As I've mentioned, Mars rules Aries and Scorpio. The complete rotation of Mars is just over 24 hours, very similar to Earth. The complete orbit of Mars is about 687 days. The energy of Mars is masculine. Mars is friends with Sun, Moon, and Jupiter. Mars is equals with Venus and Saturn, and Mars is enemies with Mercury. This simply means that if any other planets are in close proximity or in conjunction with Mars, there can be an effect on how the planets perform, whether it's positive, negative, or both. Mars represents our aggression, our desires, our ambition, and our passion. So starting off with aggression, Mars has severe dust storms, which can cover extensive areas of the planet and can last for several weeks. These storms tend to be intense but non-toxic. My astro interpretation is, aggression when managed is necessary and can yield constructive outcomes. When uncontrolled, can be destructive. Desires. Most of the time, there is a part of Mars in shadow. The planet is rarely ever fully seen. Also, Mars can seemingly change its appearance in as little as 15 minutes. These unusual visuals keeps observers interested and guessing. My astro interpretation is, although Jupiter is represented as the husband in astrology, Mars displays the qualities that attracts suitors such as confidence, sensuality, and mysteriousness. Ambition. Every 2 years, Mars comes close enough to Earth to photograph, but the time window is very small. The distance between Earth and Mars shifts from one opposition to the next. During an opposition is the best time to observe Mars as it's fully illuminated. Observers have to be determined as Mars has eccentric orbits. My astro interpretation is having the will to succeed will make even the hardest task achievable. And lastly, I have passion. The red color of Mars is attributed to the hydrated oxide of iron, or simply put, when the iron in the dirt oxidizes or rusts. My astro interpretation is, historically, the color red represents passion and is used to draw attention. Through thermal imaging or infrared imaging, red distinguishes heat. Red also has the largest wavelength. Being passionate is usually noticeable and uncontainable. Mars represents the passion that drives us to produce results. Once we partner, your life doesn't revolve around only you anymore. The atmosphere of Mars makes the 8th house a battlefield. The Scorpio energy of the 8th house also makes those battles about extremes. Right or wrong, my way or the highway, life or death. While you or your partner are not physically fighting for territory, although unfortunately some may experience that, the energy of Mars subconsciously prepares you for some type of mental duel with your partner or other people. It's the 8th house where you will discover just how prepared or unprepared you are. It's where you will discover how you react when you lose a battle, or the things you do just to win or get your way. And even how hard it is for you or the other person to give up the fight. So now that we've gone over the sign of Scorpio and the representation of Mars, I would like to discuss the common 8th house representation. So starting with being together, cohabitation, buying a home, deciding where to live, this is all seen in the 8th house. Ambiance of the household, comfortability with one another, bonding, this is all seen in the 8th house. Do you like a quiet home? Are you used to a noisy home? Lovemaking is seen in the 8th house. Integrating routines is seen in the 8th house. Quality time and date nights is seen in the 8th house. Do you like to both stay home and watch TV together or have a night out on the town? Is that vital? Getaways, family time and activities is seen in the 8th house. The other person's assets, merging resources, the other person's inheritance, the other person's in-laws, the other person's intelligence or expertise. This day and age, a lot of people like to say, what does the other person bring to the table? And a lot of us equate that to tangible things, but it definitely means the other person's intellect or the other person's just view, the other person's emotional contribution to the relationship. Our values. Do we believe in the same political parties? Do we have a shared spiritual or religious belief? How about just basic opinions on parenting styles and what is it to be a good friend? Are our priorities the same? Do we have the same shared family values or traditions? The partner. Everything about our interactions with our partner will be seen in the 8th house. So the partner's value, the partner's input, the partner's consideration, the partner's affection. Are they very loving or are they a bit distant? Does our partner like to keep things light? Are our partner's attention span? Is it short? Are they highly invested in what you're saying or not? The partner's generosity. Are they stingy? Are they extremely giving? The partner's maturity in relationships. That is something that is extremely important and will be seen in the 8th house. I like to call this in with the new. When you are establishing a new life with someone, there is definitely going to be something new that you will have to embrace or accept or take on. And it could be just the new life as a whole with the partner. Facing the world together. You know, you may have a new outlook on life, a new outlook on your attention to detail. You're more mindful. And considering that the 8th house is a representation of death, it doesn't necessarily always mean the physical death as well. It could be an emotional or psychological death and rebirth of how you may believe partnerships should be, or how you were used to them going. Agreements. The 8th house definitely shows who is in charge, or what are the agreements between you two. Have you guys come to a decision on who is going to pick up the kids every day after school, or who's going to handle certain responsibilities at home, or distributing who's paying what? Prenuptial agreements is seen in the 8th house. Responsibilities, delegations, the traditional family, the nuclear family. Sharing is seen in the 8th house. And responsibilities of the in-laws is seen in the 8th house. So now we've reached the dark side of the 8th house. Every house has a not so good or turbulent or needs improvement side of it. So starting with separation. Divorce proceedings are seen in the 8th house. Toxic atmospheres, avoiding each other, traveling separately, having small talk with each other is seen in the 8th house. Keeping things on a need-to-know basis. Temperament and temper tantrums are seen in the 8th house. It's interesting that the same ways that we get upset with our partners or the other person is very reminiscent of the same ways that we got upset when we were small children. So if we were extremely temperamental as a child, it's not surprising as an adult when we're upset that we would kind of still have that same temperament. The other person's liabilities. You know, so much of us will get into a relationship and really focus on the excellent qualities, as we should, the good qualities of the other person. And when we decide to permanently partner with this other person, we tend to ignore or just be a bit unaware of not only the assets we're attaining when we're actually getting this other person or being with this other person. We must also learn to accept their liabilities as well. So that could be their shadow side, or just the routine that they were in prior to actually being with you, which may be hard to not so much break, but hard to integrate now that they're in a partnership. So secret accounts are seen in the 8th house. The other person's financial debt, not just, the other person's income or their wealth. You're going to be accepting their debt as well. The other person's spending and expenses. The other person's lack of contribution. Also, intrusive in-laws are definitely seen in the 8th house. So chart analysis is definitely suggested for anyone to kind of understand the contribution of in-laws when it comes to their relationship. For some, it's actually favorable. It's actually great to have a parent or in-laws living near or even inside of the household, as it can just be helpful to relieve any kind of stress or any of the workload that's going on in the household. But for some others, it actually can be a great divider between a couple. So as I mentioned, chart analysis is definitely suggested here. Disconnection is seen in the 8th house. So opposite of having shared values, lack of boundaries can be seen in the 8th house. Lack of respect for each other can be seen in the 8th house. Intolerance can be seen in the 8th house. Being illiberal, parental disputes can be seen in the 8th house. Or overruling parental decisions. Maybe the child goes to one parent and the parent gives them a decision on something that the child may be asking, but the other parent tells the child the opposite. So this can definitely be seen in the 8th house as well. Mother wounds is definitely seen in the 8th house. Past dating scars, separation anxiety. How does the partner react when you're maybe working or gone for a period of time? Secret feelings towards your partner, or even just all partners in general, can be seen in the 8th house. A lot of that tends to come from repressed feelings of what happened during childhood with the mother. Maybe if the mom was a bit combative or She was she was a bit detached in her feelings. Maybe you tend to gravitate towards women that have that exact same behavior as well, subconsciously. Resentment is seen in the 8th house. Unresolved issues with the mother, as I've mentioned. Attachment styles, jealousy, and possessiveness is seen in the 8th house. I like to call this part out with the old. Deja vu is seen in the 8th house. Feeling like, have I been in this situation before, or what is actually happening to me right now? Stubbornness is seen in the 8th house. Other people's business is seen in the 8th house. Everything about other people or the other person is all 8th house. So there is a level of intrusiveness that kind of happens with the 8th house, especially if you have a very dominant 8th house, or just a lot of Mars rulership in your chart. Other people's relationships are seen in the 8th house. Cheating, secrecy, ulterior motives are seen in the 8th house too as well. When we think of other relationships, think of when a person may cheat. It's definitely not unusual to hear that the person that you may be cheating with is actually in a relationship. Everything about the other person comes to the light in the 8th house. Bad habits, struggling to change is seen in the 8th house. Cause of death is also seen in the 8th house as well. Deal breakers are seen in the 8th house. Maybe you're too controlling, or you keep reneging on what you initially agreed to, being unreliable, wanting transparency from your partner or the other person, but you're being extremely secretive, being selfish or stubborn, or being unfair at some level. This is all seen in the 8th house. So what does a healthy 8th house look like? Since the 8th house is all about secrets, sharing is caring. This isn't just in terms of tangibility, but sharing what's on your mind or sharing details about yourself and your day. Letting things go. Holding on to old wounds or past hurts is vital in strengthening your 8th house. We all come with baggage, and the best way to lighten the load is be willing to unpack our issues. Being open to change. As mentioned, the 8th house is a fixed house, as Scorpio is a fixed sign, so resistance to change is evident. This can be how you resolve issues, to trying a new way of doing things. So don't be afraid of change, because it can be beneficial and also maybe exactly what you need to strengthen your trust in others. Losing power doesn't mean losing control. Now, this is a big one. People with a dominant 8th house or a lot of Mars energy tends to struggle with control. Even if you don't understand, at some point your partner or others will have some level of persuasion in your life, you shouldn't always feel that someone having an opinion or a decision in your life is you losing control. Minding your business. This is simply understanding the roles and capacity other people are when it comes to them being involved in your relationships. I used the example of in-laws in the previous slide. Some may be helpful and some in-laws may be harmful to your relationship. Generally, just be mindful in spying or prying or overanalyzing in partnerships. As I mentioned in the beginning of this presentation, the 8th house is all about our psyche, so we have to be careful of what we choose to hyper-focus on. Heal before you kneel. This is simply starting and doing as much work on yourself before partnering with someone. A lot of the time we look to our partners to put in more effort than we do, or simply, we take out our traumas on our partners. So whatever ways we can strengthen ourselves emotionally, mentally, prior to being in a relationship is always best. And lastly, I have public lovemaking. I'm saying lovemaking throughout this presentation just for the sake of, being on YouTube, but I think we all understand what I particularly mean. This can be an indulgence that can actually become out of control if we aren't aware of it, and this actually could be seen in the 8th house. Intentional lovemaking is a way to not only make the experience more enjoyable, but it doesn't have to be as physical as we imagine it. Words of expression, hugs, touching, group activities are all forms of lovemaking. By the time the physical act happens, you actually become more aware in the moment and the connection deepens, making the experience more enjoyable. Those with a lot of Mars energy or a dominant 8th house can tend to really abuse or misuse lovemaking when hurt or needing to feel validated. So this is just a suggestion to just help with not relying on it in a negative way. And we've reached the end of this presentation. I would just like to quickly summarize the opposing house of the 8th house, which would be the 2nd house. And I like to call this the residuals of the 2nd house. Imagine all of the things that you desire, the things that you own, the things that you have for yourself, you worked hard for. Now you have to share it with someone else. How are you reacting to that? So the first one I have here is what you can't have, you take. Perhaps when you were a child, you may have had a hard time accepting no, or maybe you were a needy toddler. Perhaps you were an only child. Whatever the case, you may have had a hard time with respecting boundaries. In a relationship, you may take no as a challenge, and you may want to do the opposite, just to prove you are in control. Undervaluing your partner because you overvalue yourself, or vice versa. If you have insecurities that developed in your younger years, which could be seen in the 2nd house, and it transitioned into adulthood, you could subconsciously exhibit an envy towards others or even your own partner. You could also emotionally devalue your partner because you may secretly feel that you don't have anything to offer. Your willingness to share details with others. Family establishment begins in the 2nd house. There may have been a lack of resources growing up, or as a child you often had to share when you didn't want to. I find more than likely that there is a violation of privacy at some level, and in society or in a relationship you may struggle with sharing information or details about your life. Your lack of flexibility or always wanting your way. Since the 2nd house is mainly about what is yours and how you can get or have what you want, stubbornness can be developed here. And because of this, you can be unwavering in your decisions. And as an adult, this can lead to you being an excellent negotiator because you stay firm in your deals. But you can also have difficulty in finding a compromise. Others coming to your rescue. The 2nd house is not only a glimpse of our family life, but the life of our partners as well. In-laws can play a significant role in your relationships by interfering with you or your partner's decision making. The 2nd house is a prequel to the invasive parents we may have grown up with. And lastly, your childlike temperament during disputes. If you are a needy child or temperamental, this is not only seen in the 2nd house, but it can manifest to how you may react to conflict later on in your adult life. I mentioned this in the previous slide. Maybe you become just as needy or just as possessive or just as temperamental when you feel hurt, when in fact it's the baby in you that is actually resurfacing. As always, I would like to thank everyone for participating in this presentation, and I will see you on the next one.